Good morning, class 10. Today we are going to start a very important chapter in history, that is nationalism in India. This chapter is very important from board exam point of view. Many questions are asked from this chapter every year. Short answer type, long answer type, one word, multiple choice. In every section of the question paper, you will find some or the other question from this chapter. So when you will study this whole chapter, please prepare everything in detail. Do not miss out even the minutest detail which you find in this chapter. When I will teach the chapter to you, I will keep telling you which paragraphs are very important, which lines are very important. For map work also, because when you will do the project, when you will do the map work, things are going to be asked from this chapter also. Your project work is based on this chapter, map work is based on this chapter, and all these are always asked in the exam, in the board exam. So be very particular, be very thorough when you will prepare this chapter especially. I am not saying that all other chapters are not so important, not at all. Every chapter is very important. But as far as Indian history is concerned, this chapter is especially very important. Now let us start with nationalism in India. As you have seen, modern nationalism in Europe came to be associated with the formation of nation states. It also meant a change in people's understanding of who they were and what defined their identity and sense of belonging. New symbols and icons, new songs and ideas forged new links and redefined the boundaries of communities. In most countries, the making of this new national identity was a long process. How did this consciousness emerge in India? In India, as in Vietnam and many other colonies, the growth of modern nationalism is intimately connected to the anti-colonial movement. Anti-colonial means a movement against the British rule. People began discovering their unity in the process of their struggle with colonialism. People began discovering their unity in the process of their struggle with colonialism. That means people in India and elsewhere also, the people found out, the people realized that if they are united, they can continue and achieve success in the process of nationalism, in the process of getting freedom from colonial rule. The sense of being oppressed under colonialism provided a shared bond that tied many different groups together. Very important line. The sense of being oppressed under colonialism provided a shared bond that tied many different groups together. Rich or poor, high or low, Hindu, Muslim, Christians, Sikhs, Parsis, whichever caste, creed or color we belong to, all Indians joined hands together, united together for fight against colonial rule. But each class and each group felt the effects of colonialism differently. Their experiences were varied and their notions of freedom were not always the same. Because there were some a little privileged classes also, but we can't say that under the colonial rule actually the Indians were privileged. We were not at all privileged. We were exploited to every extent that we could have been, whether it was in government offices, whether it was in employment sector, whether it was education, whichever place, whichever sector you name, we were exploited everywhere under the colonial rule. But there were some sections of the people who were given a little bit of privilege under the colonial rule, under the British rule by the Britishers. So the concept of freedom, the need for freedom was different for different groups of people in India. The Congress under Mahatma Gandhi tried to forge these groups together within one movement. But the unity did not emerge without conflict. In an earlier textbook, you have read about the growth of nationalism in India up to the first decade of the 20th century. In this chapter, we will pick up the story from the 1920s and the study of non-cooperation and civil disobedience movements. When I will teach non-cooperation movement and civil disobedience movement, please remember that these two movements are always asked in the board exams. So please be prepared that you should know every detail, every big and small detail related to the non-cooperation movement and the civil disobedience movement. We will explore how the Congress sought to develop the national movement, how different social groups participated in the movement, and how nationalism captured the imagination of the people. So in this chapter we will see how did the spirit of nationalism come in the people of India. Why did they feel that they should be united? They should have the spirit of nationalism. They should fight to get freedom from the British rule. From where did this seed come? Let us start and see. The First World War, Khilafat and non-cooperation movement. In the years of 1919, we see the national movement spreading to new areas, incorporating new social groups and developing new modes of struggle. How do we understand these developments? What implications did they have? Implications means their effects. What were their effects on India, on the Indian people? First of all, the war created a new economic and political situation. When we are reading war, we mean the First World War. First of all, the war created a new economic and political situation. Pay attention, because this paragraph is going to tell you why was there a need to start nationalism. Why did the people of India feel that they should be united, they should have the spirit of nationalism, and they should soon start a struggle against colonial rule? Why did they feel this? This paragraph is going to tell you that what were the situations that were created that led to the rise of nationalism in India. I am reading the first line again. First of all, the war created a new economic and political situation. It led to a huge increase in defense expenditure, which was financed by war loans and increasing taxes. This is the first point. If you have the textbook in front of you, please mark this as the first point. This was the first reason why the people of India felt that now they should join hands together and rise against the British rule. The war, the First World War, led to huge increase in defense expenditure, because whenever there is any war, lot of money, lot of expenditure is incurred, isn't it? Lots of expenses are involved. So lot of the defense expenditure was increasing and increasing, which was financed by war loans and increasing taxes. Loans were taken to fulfill the need of money and taxes were increased. Now who was paying the taxes? Obviously the common man. The people were paying the taxes. Already they were suffering due to the First World War. Moreover, their sufferings increased because of increased taxes and the loans. Custom duties were raised and income tax introduced. This was the second reason why the people were forced to start the national movement, why the people now had the spirit of nationalism more infused in them. Second reason is custom duties were raised. The money that they had to pay as custom duty, the amount was raised, and income tax introduced, another burden on the people. Income tax is always a burden on the common people, especially those people who are overburdened by taxes, who are overburdened by other financial difficulties. So at this time of war, people were already in difficulty, people were already troubled and tormented. The war loans, increasing taxes, increase in custom duties, and moreover levying of income tax, the introduction of income tax added to the sufferings of the people. Through the war years, prices increased. Now this is the third reason. Whenever there is any war, children, you must be knowing that whenever there is any war, prices of essential goods and commodities always increase, because the demand increases, supply is less, the availability of essential commodities are always less. So at this time the prices always rise high. Through the war years, prices increased, doubling between 1913 and 1918. The prices almost doubled in the years 1913 and 1918, leading to extreme hardship for the common people. So adding to the sufferings of the people, the prices which rose added more problems to the people who were already in a miserable state. Villages were called upon to supply soldiers, and the forced recruitment in rural areas caused widespread anger. This is another point. So not only were the people burdened by taxes, by income tax, by the custom duties, by increase in prices, but moreover their situation became even worse when the villages were forced to supply soldiers. So many thousands and thousands of people, the soldiers were dying due to the war. So now there was demand for more soldiers on the war front, and the villages were forced to send their people to the war front to fight in the war. And the forced recruitment in rural areas, that means the villages, caused widespread anger. Forced recruitment means a process by which the colonial state forced the people to join the army. The British people, the colonial people, forced the simple village people to join the army. They were, whether they wished or they did not wish, they were forced to join the war front, and this added to the sufferings of the people. Then in 1918 to 19 and 1920 to 21, crops failed in many parts of India. This was another reason, crop failure. You can see that more and more problems were coming in. The people were facing so many problems during this time of the First World War. Crops failed in many parts of India, resulting in acute shortages of food. This was accompanied by an influenza epidemic. This can be taken in the same point. The food shortage was accompanied by influenza epidemic. So the people were dying of epidemic also, and due to scarcity of food. According to the census of 1921, 12 to 13 million people perished as a result of famines and the epidemic. Acute shortage of food, that is famine condition, and the epidemic, influenza. Due to these two problems, thousands of people died. At this stage, a new leader appeared and suggested a new mode of struggle. So this was the background. Why did the people feel that they should now raise their voice and start a national movement? This was the background, which the whole paragraph which I have read just now. Go through the whole paragraph and learn. I have divided every line into points, so please learn them point wise. It will be faster and you will remember also. So now, due to these problems, due to these political and economic hardships which the people of India were facing, a new leader appeared in the scene and started a struggle which later on became the struggle for freedom against the colonial rule. The idea of satyagrah, you must have heard satyagrah. This word is related to no one else but Mahatma Gandhi. The idea of satyagrah. Mahatma Gandhi returned to India in January 1915. As you know, he had come from South Africa where he had successfully fought the racist regime. Racist regime is mentioned here because in South Africa there was the policy of apartheid which was followed. You have studied the policy of apartheid in your primary classes. In classes 7 or 8 you must have studied. So in this in South Africa, the policy of apartheid or the policy of racial discrimination was followed. I am reading the previous line again. As you know, he had come from South Africa where he had successfully fought the racist regime with a novel method of mass agitation, with a new method of mass agitation. Mass agitation means including thousands of people in protest, which he called satyagrah. So, in order to raise his voice against the racial discrimination in South Africa, he, along with hundreds and thousands of people, joined the agitation against this policy and he named it as satyagrah. The idea of satyagrah emphasized the power of truth. If you have the book before you, children, underline this line. The idea of satyagrah emphasized the power of truth. Satyagrah, satya. Satya word comes in this. The power of truth and the need to search for truth. It suggested that if the cause was true, if the struggle was against injustice, then physical force was not necessary to fight the oppressor. Who believed this? This was the belief of Mahatma Gandhi, that if the cause of struggle, the cause of fight is based on truth, then there is no need to use physical force. That means he advocated satyagrah by using non-violence. Then physical force was not necessary to fight the oppressor. Without seeking vengeance or being aggressive, a satyagrahi could win the battle through non-violence. He advocated the theory of non-violence and said that we can easily overcome and defeat our oppressor if we are true to our agitation, if we are agitating against something which is based on truth. This could be done by appealing to the conscience of the oppressor. People, including the oppressors, had to be persuaded to see the truth instead of being forced to accept truth through the use of violence. That means he said that in order to achieve success in our aim, which aim? In order to achieve success in the revolt, in the agitation which we have started, what should be done? The people should be encouraged to see the truth which is lying behind that agitation rather than ignore the truth and start agitating based on violence. He was totally against non-violence and said that in order to gain victory in whatever revolts we start, in whatever struggles we start, if we want to win, if we want to succeed, then we should know that what is the truth behind it, and we should fight accordingly based on non-violence. I am reading this line again. This could be done by appealing to the conscience of the oppressor. People, including the oppressors, had to be persuaded to see the truth. People along with the oppressor. Oppressor means the person or the party against whom we are fighting. All should be persuaded, all should be encouraged to see the truth instead of being forced to accept truth through the use of violence. That means blindly we should not accept the truth using violence. We should see the truth lying within a particular aim of agitating. By this struggle, truth was bound to ultimately triumph. And he said that if we follow this policy, then truth will win. Truth will triumph. By this struggle, truth was bound to ultimately triumph. Mahatma Gandhi believed that this dharma of non-violence could unite all Indians. So, a very strong theory of Mahatma Gandhi is highlighted in this paragraph, and that is the theory of non-violence. Next paragraph. Now children, the next paragraph which I will read is very, very, very important. Underline the whole paragraph or just write very important above that paragraph. Let us begin. After arriving in India, Mahatma Gandhi successfully organized satyagraha movements in various places. Now, in the board exam, you are often asked where the satyagraha movements were started. So you have to mention the 3 important places which are mentioned in this paragraph along with the year. Year is equally important. The place is very important. I will tell you how the question is asked. So please pay attention. Learn this whole paragraph by heart. After arriving in India, Mahatma Gandhi successfully organized satyagraha movements in various places. In 1916, he travelled to Champaran in Bihar. Underline everything, don't leave a single word. In 1916, he travelled to Champaran in Bihar to inspire the peasants to struggle against the oppressive plantation system. Now, first let me tell you a little bit about what was this oppressive plantation system. If you want to note down, you can note down. Under this oppressive plantation system, the cultivators were forced to grow indigo, and they were not given freedom to grow the crops which they needed for their food, for their survival. And they were also paid very little for the growing of indigo. I am repeating, under this oppressive plantation system, the cultivators were forced to grow indigo. They were not allowed, they were not given freedom to grow the crops which could give them food. That means the food grains which they needed, they were not allowed to grow those. Instead, they were forced to grow indigo, and they were not given enough money for growing indigo also. They were paid very little, which was not enough for their survival. In 1916, he travelled to Champaran in Bihar to inspire the peasants to struggle against the oppressive plantation system. Then, in 1917, he organized a satyagraha to support the peasants of the Kheda district of Gujarat. Underline everything. So the first satyagraha movement was started in Champaran, Bihar in 1916, where he inspired the peasants to struggle against the oppressive plantation system. Then, secondly, in 1917, the Satyagraha movement was started in Kheda in Gujarat, and he organized the Satyagraha to support the peasants of Kheda. Affected by crop failure and plague epidemic, the peasants of Kheda could not pay the revenue and were demanding that revenue collection be relaxed. So at this time, when the Satyagraha movement was started in Kheda, the peasants here were facing a problem. The problem was of crop failure and plague, a dreadful disease, a deadly disease had spread like an epidemic. The peasants were not in a condition to pay the land revenue, and they demanded that revenue collection should be relaxed a little bit. They should be given some relaxation in paying their revenue because they were suffering from 2 problems, crop failure and plague. In 1918, now this is the third Satyagraha movement. In 1918, Mahatma Gandhi went to Ahmedabad to organize a Satyagraha movement against cotton mill workers. This was the third. In 1918, Mahatma Gandhi went to Ahmedabad to organize the Satyagraha movement against cotton mill workers. Okay, so now in this paragraph, children, as I had told you earlier, learn the 3 places with the year where the Satyagraha movements were started by Mahatma Gandhi, because a question like this is often asked. Mark on the map of India the place where the peasants were inspired to start a struggle against the oppressive plantation system. Direct question is not asked that mark Champaran in Bihar. No, it is not asked like this. You are asked in your map question in the board exam. I am repeating how the question is asked. You will be asked, mark the place where Mahatma Gandhi started the Satyagraha movement to inspire the peasants to struggle against the oppressive plantation system. So what will you write? What will you mark? Champaran in Bihar. You will mark Champaran. You will not mark Bihar. You are not going to mark Bihar. You will mark Champaran. Okay. Another type of question I am telling you how it is asked. It is asked like, mark the place where Satyagraha movement was started among the cotton mill workers. Mark the place where the Satyagraha movement was started among the cotton mill workers. So what are you going to mark? Ahmedabad. Okay. So please remember, here you have to understand and learn 2 things. Firstly, learn by heart the year and the 3 important places where the Satyagraha movements were started. Secondly, you must remember that in Champaran, Bihar, when the Satyagraha movement was started, it was for what reason? To inspire the peasants to start a struggle against the oppressive plantation system. Then in Kheda, when the Satyagraha movement was started, it was organized for what reason? To support the peasants of Kheda. Thirdly, in Ahmedabad, when the Satyagraha movement was started, what was the reason? To organize the Satyagraha movement among cotton mill workers. Okay, please remember, direct question will not be asked, mark Kheda on the map of India. No, like this you will not be asked. So you must learn this paragraph by heart, so that if a twisted question comes, which often comes, then you will not face any problem. Now another very important heading, that is the Rowlatt Act. Emboldened with this success means the Satyagraha movement, the success of the Satyagraha movement. Emboldened with this success, Gandhiji in 1919 decided to launch a nationwide satyagraha against the proposed Rowlatt Act. In 1919, the Rowlatt Act was passed. Now let me give you a brief introduction about what was the Rowlatt Act and why did the British pass this act. Rowlatt Act, listen to me carefully. The British government passed this act, which gave enormous powers to the police to arrest any person without any reason or explanation. I am reading again. Under the Rowlatt Act, the British government passed this act, the Rowlatt Act, which gave enormous powers to the police to arrest any person without any reason or explanation. Any Indian could be arrested by the police under the British rule, under the British government, by passing of the Rowlatt Act, and that person was not even asked to give any reason, give any explanation. He was just arrested without any trial. The purpose of this act was to curb the growing nationalist feelings in the country. Very, very important line, children. I am reading out again. Please write it down. I will suggest you that above this heading, where the heading of the Rowlatt Act is given in your book, above that heading, write down the purpose of the Rowlatt Act. The purpose of the Rowlatt Act was to curb the growing nationalist feelings in the country. As we have read till now, that the spirit of nationalism was now infused in every Indian. Every Indian was now ready to join hands together and turn the British out of India. So wherever and whenever the British police saw that the people are growing their nationalist feelings, the nationalist sentiments are growing in the country, and the people are becoming more aggressive, then immediately the people or a particular person was arrested, and he was not even given any opportunity to explain, to speak out anything. There was a lot of opposition against this Rowlatt Act, but finally in 1919 this act was passed. Now I am reading with the Rowlatt Act. Emboldened with this success, Gandhiji in 1919 decided to launch a nationwide satyagraha against the proposed Rowlatt Act 1919. This act had been hurriedly passed through the Imperial Legislative Council despite the united opposition of the Indian members. Obviously the Indian members rejected this. They did not want this act to be passed, but it was passed with success. It gave the government enormous powers to repress political activities and allowed detention of political prisoners without trial for 2 years. Underline this. I am reading again. It gave the government, it means the Rowlatt Act gave the government enormous powers to repress political activities. Repress political activities means curb political activities wherever they found that the political activities are becoming more and more, you can say they are becoming more popular, and they are infusing the more spirit of nationalism among the people. The people are becoming more furious in those places. These political activities were immediately curbed. They were repressed. Powers to repress political activities and allowed detention of political prisoners without trial for 2 years. Whenever it was seen that a particular person or group of people, they were trying to infuse